Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Nick Cosgrove and I'm back with this week's No Filter Q&A. This is the episode where I answer all questions related to diet, training, and supplementation that I have received over the last 7 days from our in-house clients, online clients, as well as a few of our online followers. Remember, if you have any questions related to your nutritional plan, workout program, supplements you are currently taking, not taking, or considering taking, please feel free to email me those questions at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can DM me your questions on my Instagram at fitcosgrove_. All right, let's get started with this week's no filter Q&A with question number one. Nick, is it a waste of time to do crunches for abs? I feel like no matter how often I train them, they just don't seem to be coming in. All right, so when it comes to abdominal training your transverse abdominals, your rectus abdominals, your intercostals, and obliques, in my opinion, everyone should do some form of abdominal workout. Okay, so whether that be crunches, sit-ups, leg raises, hanging knee raises, reverse crunches, bicycles, the plank, just something that's going to help develop that strength in the core. Okay. Now, here's the thing though. If you have a layer of fat covering that core, you're never going to see those abs. Okay. So you can have a really strong core, but if your body fat percentage is too high, you're not going to have visible abs, period. It's not going to happen. Okay. So the trick here is to make sure that number one, your diet's dialed in. And number two is that you're following a fairly regiment cardiovascular program. Now, when I say cardiovascular program, I don't mean you have to be going outside running for 30, 45 minutes a day. It could be brisk walking, but just some form of cardiovascular activity to get your heart rate up. Okay. So for me, I walk everywhere. Okay. So that's my cardio. I don't get on a treadmill. I don't get on a step mill, no elliptical trainers. I walk everywhere. So I attribute that to keeping a fairly lean physique year round and being able to see my abdominal region year round because I am implementing a cardiovascular routine on a daily basis, in addition to my resistance training workouts. Okay, so to get that six pack look, okay, or at least to see some definition in your abdominal region, your body fat percentage has to be on the lower side. You can't be, if you're a guy walking around at 25% body fat and think that you're going to see your midsection. Okay, it's not going to happen. Okay, same thing I tell the women. I'm like, if your body fat percentage is 18, 19%, you're not really going to see the definition in your midsection. So we need to get that number lower. Okay. And you do that through good nutrition, along with a great cardiovascular routine, and of course, resistance training as well. But I would not say to stop training your abs. At the same time, I would tell you to not overtrain your abs. Because I know there's people out there that train their abs every day in hopes to develop that six pack. That is not a smart way to train. Abs, in my opinion, should be like any other muscle group. I train every single muscle group once a week. With abs, I feel that once, even maybe twice, is okay. And when I say twice, one day could be focused on the transverse abdominals, and the second day could be focused on the rectus abdominals, intercostals, obliques, trying to space those two workouts up 2 or 3 days apart. Also, with abdominal training, anyone who works with me will tell you when it comes to direct abdominal work, I never, ever spend more than about 5 minutes working abs with clients, ever. Because I feel you already get such great core contractions throughout the other exercises we do. Barbell back squats, barbell bench press, deadlifts, going through lunges, going through seated rows, lat pull downs. You have to engage your core. So I feel that you can strengthen your core through all these exercises. So in my opinion, you don't need to do 30 minutes of abs 5 times a week. 2, 5, maybe 10-minute sessions max. That's it. That's all you need, really. You can even get away with one. Okay. Just make sure you're training intelligently and make sure your diet's dialed in and that you are implementing a cardiovascular routine on a daily or at least 3 or 4 times a week into your program. But if you truly want to see your abs, my recommendation is to be doing cardio on a daily basis. And like I said, it could just be brisk walk, but try to get at least 30 minutes in a day. That's going to help keep body fat levels low. All right. Okay. Next question. Nick, is walking better than running for fat loss? I see a lot of people walking on treadmills who are in really good shape and wondering if there's a reason why they do this instead of running. Good question, and there's multiple reasons for this. Okay. So in bodybuilding, you'll never really see bodybuilders running. Very rarely do you see a 250-pound bodybuilder running on a treadmill. Okay. It's very hard on the joints, ligaments, and tendons with that amount of weight, whether it's fat or muscle pounding down on a run. Okay. So what works best for bodybuilders is that lower intensity, longer duration. It's not just to preserve the joints, but there also is a science behind this. Okay. And when it comes to the actual scientific data showing that low intensity, longer duration will burn fat and help preserve muscle, there's numerous studies suggesting that this works. And not only studies that suggest it works, I've used it myself and it does work. Now, that's not to say you shouldn't do intense cardio. Okay. If you want to, if you love running or you like to do interval training, do it. But if your goal is to preserve muscle and burn strictly body fat, the recommendation is lower intensity, longer duration. So in low intensity, what I mean is you want to get your heart rate up to about 120 beats per minute, which is not that difficult to do for most people. To give you an idea what that should feel like on a scale of 1 to 10, it should feel like a 7. So if you were walking on the treadmill at a speed walk, you should be able to have a conversation with the person next to you, but it would be a bit of a struggle. Okay, so you're not full out running. And the whole ideology behind that is that your body is utilizing fat as its primary fuel source and not muscle. And if you want to optimize the fat burning process, I talked about this, I think, about 2 weeks ago on the channel, is my recommendation is to do your cardio either in a fasted state, first thing in the morning on an empty stomach, or immediately after your weight training session. So you're utilizing fat as your primary fuel source. Okay. So it's kind of a way of working smarter rather than harder. So to answer that question, it does burn fat faster and it will burn fat more effectively. Okay. Now, for the average person, though, who is not weight training, let's say someone is got a big gut and they need to lose weight and they're only going to the gym 2 or 3 times a week with weights. That type of person, I do recommend trying to increase their intensity of cardio because they're not trying to preserve a whole bunch of muscle. They're not trying to be a bodybuilder. They're just trying to lose their gut. They're trying to lose fat. So for those people, and I have a few clients like that on my roster, I do give them higher intensity cardio. So I'll have them doing a run. I'll have them doing the step mill. I'll have them doing interval training. Okay. And it's because the goal right now, their primary goal is to lose, in a lot of these people's cases, is the gut, the love handles. So I've got to get that body fat down. Then I can worry about preserving muscle as we continue along on the path. Okay. A lot of people that come to work with me, I mean, they've never even been to the gym ever. So this is all foreign to them. So you know what? Right now we need to get your body fat down. Let's get your body fat down to 20%. Okay. And once we get it down to 20, 18% for guys and for women, like 22, 20%, then I start to implement a different type of strategy where I'll use lower intense cardio, longer duration. And then it comes to a point where the more muscle mass you have over time, the less cardio I need to give you to get you into shape. Okay. And I find that works for everyone. It really does. And that's another reason why, if your goal is to become leaner and lose body fat, you should be training with weights because, again, I say it time and time again, the more muscle mass you're carrying, the more calories you're going to burn in a rested state. So the more muscle you have equates to a leaner physique. All right. Okay. Nick, is it okay to work out if you're feeling sore, or is it better to take the day off until the muscles have fully recovered? So I think this will depend on A, how sore you are, and B, where are you sore? So for example, when I first came back after my hernia surgery, everywhere was sore. I trained my chest, it was super sore. I trained my back, it was sore for a week. I trained my shoulders, oh my God, I couldn't move my delts for like 2 weeks. Legs, they're still sore. After being back in the gym for 3 weeks, my legs are still sore from my first leg workout. So you have to really make sure that you're paying attention to what is sore and how sore are you. So for example, my first day back at the gym, I trained chest. My chest was so sore that I couldn't even put on my coat. Honestly, just to retract my shoulder, I couldn't do it. But my back was okay. So I still trained my back. The next day, my back was sore though, a good sore, not a bad sore. And that's another thing too. You want to be able to distinguish between good pain versus bad pain. Okay. But it was a good sore. But like, wow, I really worked that area. But I tell you what, I couldn't work chest and I couldn't work back for at least a week. But I could still work my shoulders. I could still work my biceps. I could still work my triceps. And I could still work my quads, hamstrings, glutes, and calves. So it's important to have a grasp of a basic understanding, I should say, of anatomy and physiology and implement a training split that makes sense so that even when you are sore, you can train other muscle groups. Okay. So again, it comes down to A, how sore you are, and B, where you're actually sore. So when you're putting together a well-structured training split, and I've talked about this before, how important this is. Actually, I stressed the importance of having a proper training split in place last week on the channel. You're going to be sore, but if you're trained properly, for example, in the case of chest, you're not going to train chest again for another week. So you have a full 6 days to recover. And then you can train your back and you have a full 6 days for your back to recover. Shoulders, full 6 days of shoulders recover, and so on with the arms and legs. So it's about putting together a training split that makes sense. Now, at the end of the day, if you are sore all over, I would not advise you to go and lift weights. Okay, this is an accident waiting to happen. Okay, if you're sore, your body is telling you to back off. So listen to your body. You don't have to do weights that day. You could go do cardio. In fact, I recommend you do cardio if you're sore because that's going to help flush out lactic acid. So if you're that sore, everywhere is sore. Maybe you did a full body workout and you're sore everywhere. Go do cardio. You could probably still go on the elliptical or on the step mill. You could probably still go for a speed walk outside. So I would recommend doing that or go for a swim. Just something to get your heart rate moving and your body moving and flush that lactic acid out and release synovial fluid throughout your joints, ligaments, and tendons. So that's my recommendation if you are feeling sore. Figure out A, how sore you are. B, where is that soreness? Have you put together a well-structured training split? And if you haven't and you're just sore everywhere, throw in some cardiovascular exercise. That will help speed up the process so you're not as sore. As far as all these other strategies like Epsom salt baths that people will use or glucosamine, I mean, you could try them, massage, physiotherapy. But in my experience, that all that stuff is just fluff. It doesn't really work. I feel that the best way to recover is to move. Okay, movement helps. You need to move your body. The best thing you can do after a leg day is move. The worst thing you could do is sit. Okay, movement creates a faster recovery for the body. Our bodies crave movement. Our bodies love movement because the more we move, the more lactic acid we flush out, the more synovial fluid we create into the body. And when I've talked about synovial fluid in the past, synovial fluid is like that WD-40 for your joints, your ligaments, tendons, keeps everything nice and smooth. Okay. I've been training for 25 years. I've never had any joint pain, and I attribute that to constantly moving my body. All right. Okay. Okay, next question. Nick, is it possible to not lose weight if you're not eating enough food? Like, does this slow down the metabolism if your caloric intake is too low? Okay, that's a good question. So, again, there's no direct studies that show that the metabolism slows down with age. None. Okay. So I want to make that clear because I've talked about this a few times on the channel, and there's a lot of people that would say, well, now that I'm getting older, my metabolism slows down. No, your metabolism doesn't slow down as you age. You slow down with age. You become more sedentary. You become less active. You drive instead of walk. You sit instead of stand. You skip the gym a few extra times because now you have other commitments, whether they be work related or family related. So you yourself slow down. Okay. So it's not anything to do with the metabolism. Your eating habits change. People, as they get older, a lot of times they go more towards comfort, right? Comfort foods, right? And convenience. So driving, like I said, instead of walking, right? Sitting instead of standing, maybe not going to the gym as much. So it's the person that changes, it's not the metabolism. Okay. Now, to answer your question about the diet, though, here's the thing. If you actually start taking in fewer and fewer calories and put the body into a state of starvation, your metabolism will actually slow down. And it has nothing to do with your age. It has to do with the fact that our bodies are very resilient. Our bodies are very intelligent. If you're not fueling your body properly, your body's like, well, hold on a second. I need to hold on to any calories that I get in me right now and preserve that for energy. Your body doesn't care about burning fat. Your body doesn't care about building muscle. Your body just cares about survival. That's it. Okay. So you have to monitor what your macronutrient intake is based on your activity level, not your caloric intake, your macronutrient intake is. You also have to understand your body type. Are you an endomorph, ectomorph, mesomorph? If you're not familiar with that, go back to last week's Q&A channel episode. I had a whole question on what body types were, and I talked about endomorphs, ectomorphs, mesomorphs. So knowing what type of body type you are will allow you to understand, am I sensitive to carbohydrates? Do I perform better on a low fat, high carb or high fat, low carb diet? Protein should be moderate to high for everyone across the board. Okay. So understanding that is going to be crucial to make sure that every ounce of weight that you lose is body fat and not muscle. So to answer that question, yes, if you start to restrict your overall caloric intake too much, and like I said, I don't count calories, but I'm going to say if you restrict your overall macronutrient intake too much, your metabolism will then slow down. Then and only then will it slow don. Okay. But again, it has nothing to do with age. Okay. So if you're someone who's been active since you were in your teens and now you're in your 60s and you're still active, you probably noticed that your metabolism is the exact same. You're still as lean as you were in your 20s because you're still moving, you're still exercising daily. Okay. But if you start to restrict those calories too much, restrict those macronutrients too much, your body slows down and says, oh, no, we got to hold it on. So that's not a good idea. And this is why I tell people if you're trying to lose weight, you want to start off with a plan that feeds you lots of food. And every person that comes to work with me on a nutritional plan, they're always shocked, always. If their goal is to lose weight, and the first week I give them all this food on the plan, they're like, oh my God, I don't eat this food to begin with. I'm like, that's fine. Eat whatever you can. I give them too much food purposely because I want them, A, to have a healthy relationship with food, and I want to change their eating habits from the bad foods towards the good foods. So I always tell people if you start to crave something like a slice of pizza, a muffin, a cookie, have it. But before you have it, I want you to have every single meal that I put on that nutritional plan. And no one, not a single person is able to have that cookie, pizza, muffin, because if they do have all the food on the plan that I lay out for them on week one, they're stuffed. They can't do it. They literally cannot fit it into their system. So it's the whole idea is to set good eating habits. And then we start to slowly rotate macronutrients, not necessarily decrease everything, because if you keep decreasing everything on a weekly basis, what's going to happen when you hit a plateau? And now you're starving. You're going to keep reducing calories. You're going to do extra cardio. So it's not an intelligent way to diet. An intelligent way to diet is to give yourself as much food as you possibly can and continuously lose body fat while preserving and building muscle mass. And this is why I always tell people losing weight is easy. It's not hard. But losing body fat while preserving and building muscle, that is a whole other beast and something that you have to be strategic with how you approach that type of diet plan. Okay. Again, if it's not a sustainable diet plan, it will not be a successful diet plan, and you truly are just wasting your time. So put together a nutritional plan that makes sense and a nutritional plan that is sustainable. This is the only way that you're going to be successful long term. All right. Okay. Nick, is it better to train like an athlete or a bodybuilder if you're trying to transform your body? Well, you kind of answered the question there yourself. If you're trying to transform your body, you want to train like a bodybuilder. That's what bodybuilders do. Bodybuilders' main objective is to transform their physique, build more muscle, lower their body fat, increase muscular endurance, right? Increase mobility, flexibility. All this correlates with body transformation. Now, athletes have a purpose, right? But their purpose is not for aesthetics. Their purpose is for their sport. Hockey players train for hockey, basketball players train for basketball, right? So you're training for a specific sport. So the training is going to be somewhat different, not completely different, because I'll tell you what, I work with quite a few hockey players and basketball players. I still put them on bodybuilding splits, but I also put them on different performance splits as well, because I understand that the main goal is always going to be for their sport of choice. Okay. Especially if they're trying to get into the professional rankings or are already in the professional rankings. Okay. So the aesthetics somewhat take a back seat. And now we're more into functional movements. Okay. Something that's going to allow them to perform better on the ice or on the court or whatever their sport may be. Okay. But if your goal is to transform your physique, you want to train like a bodybuilder, which means you want to focus on heavy compound lifts. You want to keep those reps in double digits, that 10 to 15. You want to keep your rest periods short. You want to keep your intensity levels high. Okay. So that's how bodybuilders train. And that's how you're going to transform your physique. And don't forget too, it's not just training like a bodybuilder, but it's also eating like a bodybuilder. I've had so many clients over the years tell me, when I put them on a diet plan, they're like, "Wow, I feel so much better." I have people that come to work with me who have IBS, and like, my IBS is almost gone. I rarely have any issues. I don't know what's going on. I'm like, because you're following a bodybuilder diet, and a bodybuilder diet is clean, whole food sources. Okay. And the thing is, the media doesn't want to talk about this because they always try to overcomplicate things. You don't need to overcomplicate things. You just need to go back to the basics. The basics work. The basics work in the gym and in the kitchen. Okay. You don't need all this other fluff. And really, it's just a marketing gimmick. And that's one thing I always tell my clients, like, I'm going to be completely transparent with you. What I'm doing is not super difficult. I have years of experience that's helping me help you get from point A to point B. But what I'm doing myself is not that difficult. All I have to go by is how you look, how you feel, how you're sleeping, how you're recovering. And that's where I make changes to your diet and your training. Okay. But if you want to transform your physique, my recommendation to you, train like a bodybuilder, eat like a bodybuilder, sleep like a bodybuilder. That's how you're going to transform your physique. All right. Okay. A few more questions. Nick, how much time do you actually spend training a client during a session versus having them warm up and cool down with stretches and band slash foam roller work? All right. So if you work with me in person, rarely, if ever, will I ever ask you to get on a foam roller with me during your workout or use bands or get on a treadmill to warm up. This to me is nonsense. This is a waste of time. Okay, this is things that you can do on your own. Now, there have been times where I have a client come in and say, "Oh, my lower back is tight." I will show them some work on the actual foam roller. I might give them some dynamic stretches, or I might give them some PNF stretches, perpetual neuromuscular function stretches, to help alleviate that pain or soreness that they might be feeling in their lower back, their glutes, calves, etc. That is the only time where I will either stretch out a client or use the foam roller. Okay. Because really, the workout itself should be spent lifting weights. This is what we're here to do. Okay. So when someone walks in, the session starts at 8 a.m. First of all, I'm not late for sessions ever. Okay. I start at 8. If the session's at 8 a.m., I start at 8 a.m. I don't start at 8:05, I start at 8 a.m. We're warming up with our first round of whatever circuit we're doing. Okay. So it's like a chest and back workout, incline barbell bench press, seated rows, dumbbell flies, lat pull down, 4 stations, 4 rounds, 16 sets. Usually done that within the first 15, 20 minutes. There's no wasting time. Okay. If you're in the gym with me for 45 minutes, 60 minutes, we're utilizing every minute to the best of our ability. Okay. So the only time I have a client use a foam roller with me or I'm stretching a client is if that person is complaining of maybe some soreness within their hip, their whatever, their shoulder, their pecs, wherever it may be, glutes, hamstrings, whatever it is. Okay. Lumbar region. But otherwise, no, we utilize every minute we possibly can to the client's benefit. And I see a lot of trainers who do follow those cookie cutter programs like, okay, let's warm up on the treadmill, then let's do some dynamic stretches, and then we'll do maybe 30 minutes of actual weightlifting and then we'll get on at the end of the, we'll do some static stretches for the last like 15, 20 minutes. I'm like, you're not going to succeed if you're following a plan like that. You're not going to see changes in your physique if you yourself are only actually lifting the damn weight for 25, 30 minutes. You've got to lift the weight and you've got to put your all into it. Okay. So my mindset when I'm training a client, I don't care if the client's a beginner, intermediate, advanced. I'm going to train that person to the best of my ability and I'm going to utilize every single minute I can to their benefit. Okay. Putting them on a foam roller and watching them roll, that is a waste of time and a waste, if you're a client yourself, a waste of your money, period. All right. Okay. Nick, is it true that eating more fats can help you lose fat faster? Absolutely. I'm a huge advocate of implementing lots of fats, healthy fats. Okay, I'm not talking about trans fats, but I'm healthy fats here, a little bit of saturated fats, but primarily healthy fats into a person's diet if the primary goal is to lose body fat. And a lot of people might think that's crazy because if you look at fats, fats are fairly high in calories. They are. They're actually higher in calories per gram than protein and carbs. So you would be thinking, well, hold on a second. Why would I want to be taking in more calories if my goal is to lose weight? Well, let me tell you why. Fats allow the body to stay fuller for a longer period of time. Okay, so they actually help you suppress your appetite. So if you have a tablespoon of peanut butter, which I like, say 90 calories to 100 calories, that's a lot of calories for 1 tablespoon. But if you put that tablespoon of peanut butter in your oats in the morning, you're going to notice that your hunger is suppressed for 4 or 5 hours easily. And that's because the fats take longer to break down. So they're suppressing your appetite. So that 100 calories, even though it looks like a lot on paper, is stopping you from overeating throughout the day. It's helping you regulate your blood sugar levels and stabilize your insulin levels. Now, this is important. So when you're implementing fats throughout the day, your energy levels are going to be like this. You're not going to have these spikes. You're not going to be ravenous and craving food. Oh my God, I'm so hungry. I never feel like that because I'm constantly having fats throughout the day. The only time I don't have fats is pre-workout. And I had talked about this in the past, but I'll touch on it briefly. Is the reason I don't recommend having fats pre-workout is for that exact reason that the body takes longer to digest fat. So the last thing you want is to be digesting food while you're trying to work out. So that's why I tell people to save fats for post-workout or at least a few hours before your workout if you're someone who works out in the late afternoon or early evening, okay? But not directly before, okay? So yes, if you can consume more fats, you're going to lose fat faster. Absolutely, you will. And again, I understand that that seems like a contradiction because it took me a while to do learn that as well. Because when I first started bodybuilding, when I first started trying to do my own diet, I was a huge low to no fat guy. I was. That was very popular in the 80s and the 90s, and I kind of just took that information and put it towards my own diet. But what I realized was that because my carbs were so high and my fats were so low, I was constantly hungry. I was, even though I was having complex carbohydrates, I was constantly hungry. I'd be finished a meal and I'd be waiting for my next meal. So when I started implementing more fats into my diet in the source of olive oil, avocados, omega-3 eggs, natural peanut butter, almond butter, cashew butter, I noticed that my appetite became more and more suppressed. And I noticed that I was able to go throughout the day with loads of energy and not feel constantly hungry. Okay. And I attribute that to increasing my fats. Now, again, how much fat should you have? Well, like, you've got to be careful because you still have to watch. Like, I mean, if your goal is to lose weight, you don't want to just be having like 4 tablespoons of peanut butter with your oats. No, you want to be smart. You want to be strategic. So I always, when I'm putting together a nutritional plan, I'll ask someone what their weight is. There's a lot of questions I ask, their activity level, and again, knowing their body type, that helps as well. Their work schedule, do they have a sedentary job? Do they have an active job? And that's how I understand how their body works. And I understand, okay, this is how much carbs I'm going to start this person on, this is how much protein, and this is how much fats. And then I tweak those numbers along the way. Okay. And that's important too. When you are following a nutritional plan, in my opinion, you shouldn't be following the same plan from week 1 to week 16. You should be making changes. And you don't just make changes for the sake of making changes. You make changes based on your results. Are you losing weight? Are you gaining weight? Are you not doing anything with your weight? Are you staying stagnant? Okay. So that's how you know when and where to make changes. But yes, if you are trying to lose body fat, my suggestion to you is to make sure that your fats, as in your healthy fats, are relatively high. Okay. This will help you lose fat. I promise you. It works. It's something I implement with every single person I work with. And I'll tell you right now, most people I work with, unless they're getting ready for a bodybuilding show, they'll tell you they're never hungry and they're losing weight. Never hungry. Okay. Bodybuilding's a little different because we got to get your body fat if you're a guy to like 5-3%. So you got to suffer a little bit. Same thing with the women. You got to get that body fat down to 12-10%. So a little bit more suffering. But if you're someone who just wants to look good and feel good and have normal body fat levels, you don't have to suffer. Okay. You just have to put together a nutritional plan that makes sense, sorry, and implement a strategic plan to ensure that every week you're progressing as opposed to remaining stagnant with your results. I think oh no, one more question. Okay. Nick, I read your post about the other coach that badmouthed you to your client. Did you reach out to that coach yet? And if you did, what did you say? All right. So this person is referring to a post that I put out. I think I put it out on Friday. And I wouldn't say that this coach badmouthed me. I actually never said the coach badmouthed me. We have a new client on our roster who had worked with this coach previously, and this coach had told this client that I only care about making pretty physiques. And I think that may have been, I don't think it's bad mouth, but I think maybe that perception comes from my bodybuilding background where you are being judged purely on your aesthetics, right? Um, my answer to that, okay, well, first of all, I'm going to say that I did not reach out to this coach. I have no reason to reach out to this coach. But my answer to that to my client, especially because it's a new client, so this person is not familiar with how I train people yet. They're not familiar with my roster. They have no idea. They're just pretty much going by what they're told from their old coach. So what I told this client was, well, that's not true. Simply, it's not true because there's a lot of people that work with me that come to work with me because they want to improve their overall health, well-being, Okay. There's a lot of people that work with me because they want to prevent osteoarthritis, tendonitis, bursitis. There's some people that work with me who already have arthritis, tendonitis, bursitis, and they don't want to get worse. So, not everyone that works with me wants to have an amazing physique, nor do I try to get them to have this amazing physique. Do I work with people who want to aesthetically look better? Absolutely. Absolutely, I do. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I talked about that too in my post about how I truly believe the body positivity movement has gone way too far. Okay. We're celebrating obesity and we're saying that you should love your body. I'm all for loving your body. Love your body. But don't shame people who want to go to the gym and improve the way they look. And they want to look in the mirror and like what they see. There is nothing wrong with that. Okay. So my whole post was not necessarily directed towards that other coach. It was directed towards letting people know that no, I don't just work with people who want to have pretty physiques, but there's nothing wrong with wanting to have a pretty physique. Who doesn't want, in my opinion, like, why not? Why wouldn't you want to have a nice lean physique and have a functional physique? I'm sure if you were to ask most people who struggle with their weight, hey, if we could just give you a pill and you'd lose that gut right now, I bet you 90% of them would say yes, absolutely. So to shame people who want to look better and feel better, that to me has taken a completely different direction into the body positivity movement. So it's what this coach said didn't bother me, but it made me think and think like, A, no, that's not true. And anyone that works with me, will tell you that's not true. But it's so ridiculous to even comment on that. But then it made me think, well, hold on a second. What's wrong with that though? Why are we shaming people who want to go to the gym and if you're a guy, you want to get bigger arms, or if you're a girl and you want to get a better butt? Why are we shaming that? There's nothing wrong with that. So yeah, I do work with people who want to develop better looking physiques. Me myself. It's one of the reasons I continue to train. I train for the mental benefits, but I also train for the physical benefits. And yeah, I'm a little bit vain and I want to look good. When I go out, when I go to the beach or I go to my rooftop deck, I would take off my shirt. I want to feel good. Okay. I don't want to have to hide my body. So there's nothing wrong with that. Okay. And if you are happy with your body and you are someone who's overweight, all the power to you. But don't shame somebody else because they're trying to make a difference in their physique because they do want to be leaner. Okay. So yeah, I that was what my post was mainly about. It wasn't necessarily addressing that coach. So if you want to see that post, you can go to my Instagram, fit Cosgrove underscore. I believe I put it up on Friday. But yeah, I mean, again, no reason for me to address this person individually. There's no reason that person can always reach out to me. They can always come on Q&A or we can have a debate, a guru debate. We talk about it. That's fine. I'm always open to discussing with other trainers. But at the end of the day, I can't control what someone thinks about me. They can think whatever they want. And I don't think it was someone that badmouthed me, but at the same time, I feel that it was an ignorant comment to make because it's simply not true. Okay, so yes, I do work with people who want to better their health, better their overall well-being, improve their overall fitness, longevity, mobility, flexibility, and look and feel better naked with their clothes on or off. And in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with that. Anyway, that's it for this week's No Filter Q&A. This episode will be going up on Monday, July the 28th. As a reminder, if you have any questions related to your nutritional plan, workout program, supplements you are currently taking, not taking, or considering taking, please feel free to email me those questions at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can DM me your questions at fitcosgrove underscore. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for supporting my YouTube channel, my online coaching business, as well as my in-house personal training business here in Vancouver, British Columbia. I truly do appreciate all the support, all the feedback that I receive from each and every one of you. I even appreciate the negative comments that I get from other coaches. Anyway, that's it. I'll see you all next week. Bye for now.